Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. It's episode 3 of our People Impact Loop series, and today we're talking all about understanding the most important person in learning and development, your audience. I'm not on my own. Ashley's doing a very good job at being incredibly quiet this week. But you are with both myself and Ashley to talk through something that I actually think, since the day maths started, has probably been one of our favourite topics and one that we're probably most passionate about, if you agree, Ash. This is when you're going to be like, no, not at all.
No, for sure. No, that's nonsense. Why are we even here? This is stupid. I think when I started maths, or before I even started maths, I was always just bewildered that people were not really taking any time to understand their audiences at all. So, we bought this thing for them, don't know anything about them. We're going to launch it to them, don't know anything about them. It's bewildering. So, it's understanding our audiences is crucial for effective marketing. But it also goes back to the thing we've discussed before around that product market fit too. So, if you don't take the time to research your audiences properly and really understand what's going on with them, organizationally, especially in that culture that they're living in, how do you know whether what you are planning on spending many, many monies on is going to actually be fit for purpose? So it's just kind of like a blind, reckless waste of money and time and energy. So, that's always where I kind of stood with it, at least.
Yeah, and it was one of the ones similar to you, like before I'd even joined maths, it was like, I don't understand how you're getting away with this. I don't understand how you don't know your audiences. Like, who's this going to? What do they care about? Do they even want it? Like, first and foremost, whatever you're doing for them. And you can't answer any of those questions without knowing them. And I know we've both had the conversations where we say to people, oh, so like, who's your audience? And they say, employees at our organisation or learners. And it's like, oh, come on. Nobody identifies as a learner, first and foremost. That one can go straight out the window. That's not true. Employees, I suppose some of us, I know I definitely do. When somebody asks me about myself, I say like, oh, I'm a marketing director for a really cool agency. But again, it's not who I am deep down. It's not it's not the reason I wake up in the morning, is it? I'm so much more.
That is rude, Hannah.
I'm getting my P45 now.
Rude.
But
straight to the heart. She just put me ow. I'm not the reason you wake. God.
No, I'm sorry, Ash. I'm sorry. You're
That's
very
fine.
important.
I appreciate
You're
your
up
honesty.
there.
That's fine. It's fine.
But in all seriousness, people are a lot more than their job titles. They're a lot more than the role they work in. And we need to quickly realise that in L&D if we want to get any form of impact. If you do everything but miss out the understanding of your audience, you're still going to struggle to get any kind of impact, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it's pretty much what I said with you in the first episode. You're then building, without research and without audience insights and meaningful data, you're building everything on really sketchy foundations. And it is a house of cards that will eventually tip. And that's where we are now, really. Lots of learning functions and people functions more broadly don't have the ability to prove their value to the business because they haven't built products that are aligned with business goals. The products that they do have to service the employees are also not fit for purpose because the employees, as you said, they probably don't want them. Maybe the business thinks that they need them. So then there's got to be a change management piece and a big focus on adoption and behavior change. These two things are sometimes in conflict, but they still need to coexist somehow, and it's up to us to figure out how to make that work. But the core of all of that is understanding our users and understanding our people and their behaviors and their motivators and their wants and their needs. It isn't as simple as just asking them, when I see this research being done or research being done, we talk to a lot of potential customers and prospects, and a lot of them will say we've got loads of research on our employees. But when you really dig down into that research, a lot of it is either very much done in the echo chamber of, what is your opinion on our experiences and products in whatever, replace experience with learning and products with LMS or whatever. we're kind of like, it's like interviewing 101. We're asking biased questions or subjective questions, and therefore we're getting quite subjective answers back. So we need to be able to have slightly more open discussions with people to really get to the nub of what's going on in the organization in order to tailor our approaches.
And with the right audience as well, the right segment of our audience almost, rather than just going to the people that love learning, because I've seen so many companies do that. Yeah, we ask people to come along to a focus group. All of these people have got like 7 million% engagement rate with our learning. Of course, they are going to have a very different perception of learning, and who they are and what they care about is going to be very different to somebody that's never ever engaged with learning before. You need to make sure that you're getting a really proportionate sample of your audience and talking to them all. And whenever I've said that to people, they're like, oh, why do we have to talk to people that aren't engaged? Because you need to make them engaged. So you need to understand them. You need to have a real mix of demographics. You need a real mix of job roles. You need a real mix of job functions. And a real mix of previous learning engagement. You can't just talk to your star learners and think, yep, this is perfect, this is great research, because it will be biased. So not only think about the questions that you're asking, but also who you're asking them to is so important if you really want to understand your audience and get that depth of knowledge that we need to help make our functions actually impactful.
Yeah, well, because all you're kind of doing is creating a bit of confirmation bias, right? You got lots of people that kind of like what you do. They're validating that what you do is good, so on and so forth. A really simple example is I did a poll on LinkedIn, and so did you, in terms of what sort of off-the-shelf learning campaign would you have if you could have it? And the answers were like a program launch, learner re-engagement, culture change, and truthfully, Hannah can't even remember what the fourth one was. Nevertheless, we've got the results back, and Hannah and I were discussing it. She can't remember either, so we both have pudding brains. And I was saying, okay, well, hold on, because we expected program or product launch to be the main one that people would want. Like, I'm launching a new thing, if that's a platform or a program, whatever. But most of the responses that we got were learner re-engagement and culture change. And I sat and thought about that, and I was like, why is that? And then I thought, actually, it's my audience who are replying to my poll. So these are people who follow me. They engage with my content regularly, especially the people who are going to reply to a poll are the ones who probably are more active on LinkedIn, really like what I post, and therefore give me some feedback and interact with me. So because of that, these people maybe have a slightly more advanced view of what a learning campaign is, what it's purpose for, and therefore maybe they're already trying some of the program stuff themselves and want some help on the more complex stuff like learner re-engagement and culture change. Again, this is a great example of exactly what you've just said, where it isn't just as simple as asking the questions, it's contextualizing the answers and taking a step back to say, this is why we say data informed, not data led, right? You're not just getting the data and saying the data points us here, we're going to go there. You're then putting on your thinking hat and not going to chat GPT and actually thinking about, who is this audience and what's going on. And that's why you need that organizational context, as well as feedback from your people and your stakeholders, because without that, you can easily let the data that you do get take you down a garden path and not really take you in the direction of travel that you should be going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen that happen all too often, where people are asking the wrong questions to the wrong audience. It's quite easy to realise when you're asking the wrong audience. I think people listening to this will probably be like, yeah, I did exactly that. I sent out a request, all my star learners responded. I thought that was fine because it was 50 people. But the wrong questions. How will somebody know if they're asking the right questions? And what are the right questions that we should be asking our audiences in trying to understand them properly so that we can effectively apply the people impact loop?
I think if you're getting just positive feedback, it's very unlikely that you're asking the right questions. I'm not sure that that's happening anyways, if I'm honest, but the likelihood of it just being positive is slim to none. I can't think of a single company in the world that has a 5-star reviews on TripAdvisor, because experiences are very subjective, and therefore, we need that cross-section to get a bit of a scale. And yes, okay, maybe the really negative ones need also contextualizing against the really, really positive ones. But if we're just getting positive feedback, that's not really going to help us grow. I said loads of times as a marketer, my failures are my biggest lessons and my biggest opportunities to pivot and evolve as a marketer. This data is crucial and to allow us to understand what we're doing. Is it working? What's not working? And where can we improve our products and the experiences that sit within them? But also, how can we better help the people that we're literally here to service? So if you're just getting lots of the same type of responses, if they're all positive or whatever, a lot of people are saying the same sort of thing, maybe kind of have a moment to consciously dig into that a little bit more and make sure you're asking the right questions. And I don't remember what your second question was, Han, so you have to remind me.
Well, I'm going to extend on what you just said as well, because I also think if you're getting really short answers and almost you're answering a question that somebody could tick a box for, that's also a sign that you're asking the wrong questions. And again, learning through experience. Some of the first research projects I did, I was getting really short answers that made it easy for me. Okay, they said this, I know exactly what they mean. And when I started evolving my questions and actually answering the right questions, I get people standing on a soapbox in the middle of a discovery session now, being well, it's really good and this, that, the other, but actually we need this and it's not aligned with the business goals and it's not the business is talking about this, but learning is talking about that. They get really passionate about it. And I'm getting more than a one-word answer. I'm getting explanations. And one example I love to give, when I was asking, almost, I can't remember the exact wording of the question, but I was asking about motivations in life. This woman told me a story about her life to the point that I was really pleased I had a poll question next, because I had to compose myself, because she was telling me the details about her life, because I'd asked a question that was open-ended and let her go, well, actually, this is why I come to work. This is what motivates me. Versus, I come to work for money. If you're getting short answers, I think that's a telltale sign as well that you're not asking the right things. You're not getting that real depth of understanding of who your audience is.
It's a fine line between a discovery session and a therapy session, isn't it?
They typically always feel like therapy sessions to me. I come off and I'm like, wow, I've just taken on a big burden for everyone. But yeah, that's when you're going to be getting the insights.
Yeah. I mean, the mindset of most people is, to some extent, they do care about the job that they... Not to some extent. Most people care about the job they do. They want to do a good job at work. They want to retain their job. They need their income for whatever reason. They don't ignore your learning initiatives because they think that it's just a waste of time. They probably do now.
Sometimes,
but
yeah.
Yeah, maybe not initially. And certainly, I think to my mind, the two things just come hand in hand. You know, when I think back about any of the discovery I've done, there's always tons of feedback about the products, the experiences. We were just talking about something yesterday or today, and I was saying, they want to have an improved learning experience. Cool, I hope they're building some learning journeys or something like that. Because again, if we just have these self-service experiences, just shove it all on a platform, people still don't know what to do with that, So I think we've got to get to the crux of why people aren't learning. And I don't believe, in the most part, it's because they don't want to upskill and they don't want to benefit from improved knowledge and improved productivity and improved performance. I don't think that's where the apathy comes from. The apathy comes from consistently poor experiences across the learning product portfolio and an underwhelming effort to engage. And therefore, there's just no ability for that to create kind of object permanence in their mind. They don't go to the intranet and look for learning because it doesn't even exist in their minds. Not because they're negligent, not because they're rubbish people. It's just because it's not at the top of their list, and that's okay.
And I think it's also really important to point out that even if you're building an L&D team from scratch, the world we live in now, everyone in the workforce has an opinion on L&D. They've probably had a negative experience in the past. I literally was on a call just before this, and I said it's like the hazard of working in our industry, isn't it? You tell someone you work in L&D, and they roll their eyes and go, "Oh, that's so boring." You're like, no, it's not. But that's the worldwide perception of what we do. So we are coming from a point of actually people are a bit apathetic. They don't really know why they should care. And like you just said, we've not done anything to try to engage them. So they're just assuming it's the same. So even if you don't think you've done anything wrong, remember that people come with preconceived ideas of what learning is and how bad it is and how boring it is. So we really need to understand them so we can engage with them properly to make them want to come and do what we want them to do. Because that's essentially what we need to do when we understand our audiences.
Those preconceived notions are crucial as well, because this is why a lot of FMCG brands in particular do market research, because there is tons of existing belief around even color codes and things like that. So if I was to say, name me a brand with the color red. Coca-Cola. There you go. This is not rehearsed, Name me a brand with yellow. McDonald's. No, damn it, Hannah.
I didn't get McDonald's.
Who did you go for?
I don't know. I was really stumped.
Well,
I also think because in my head I was expecting you to say purple.
Why? Dairy milk?
Cadbury's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone goes for the purple with the Cadbury's.
So the point I'm trying to make, right, is there's a lot of pre-existing stuff that already goes in people's minds. There's already a lot of association that exists in terms of what they've already experienced with your organization when it comes to learning, what they've experienced in previous organizations and in previous roles. Oh, in my last place, it was really bad. What's it like here? And if the first person they speak to says, it's really crap here too. Brilliant. I'm not even going to spend my time. Do you know what I mean? And that's enough to kill the whole thing, really. Probably at some point they'll drift over there because they're told to or have to or whatever, but this is important, right? So that word of mouth piece is crucial. If we prescribe to 70-20-10, I think I'm going on a trend of mentioning that in every single podcast we do at the moment. But I don't even know if I have an opinion on it. But if we agree that a good bulk of our learning is on the job and it's not done formally, then that peer sentiment, that market sentiment is crucial. Because that's where the conversations are being had and the water cooler chat, as it were. So if we can't be influencing those conversations offline, then we're in a pickle, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which we are.
And I remembered my second half of my question for you. So what questions should we be asking?
What's your name? Where are you from? What you on? No.
Sorry, that just reminded me of what was that dating show that Cilla Black used to do?
Oh, Blind Date.
That's it, where they were all sat behind.
Or back in the day on MSN, ASL, age, sex, location.
Yeah. We're showing our age.
I know. Whoops. So, questions-wise, avoid demographic data is redundant. I don't see the benefit of it. It doesn't help us do anything. So we want to be looking at psychographics, really, and behavioral data. So understanding what people are doing and where they're going and why. So again, some of your technology can give you some insights into things that are going on your systems or lack thereof. And that can maybe help steer some questions that you might want to ask around, what's going on? Why are things breaking? Where are you getting lost? That sort of stuff. I don't think we want to be asking people about specific experiences, like how was the leadership program you went on, or again, too granular. So, we're going to...
Just to interject that, there's a time and place for that. You can get your feedback on your particular program, but that shouldn't be part of this research and understanding your audience.
No, because we're trying to get a broad view of the market overall. So digging into granular products or learning experiences isn't going to necessarily help us. I think there are interesting, perhaps, scenarios where, again, not part of this research, but getting data to understand, okay, how are people rating this versus this, and why is this better than that? And again, data informed, not data led, but should we be doing more of what's working and less of what's not? Not one for this podcast discussion. But for me, the things that I like to understand are really, you've heard me mention it at least twice on this podcast alone, is the organizational culture. So I personally feel, whilst L&D and people functions more broadly are employees of the organization, of course they are, they're a little bit more eat, sleep, and breathe the business than some other functions are, because they're intrinsically interwoven into the fabric of the business. Like, we are a people function. They have to be bought in to what's going on. They should be bought in. So what's the lived experience of other people? I've seen lots of different things where there's, multifunctional, multi-country, multi-purpose organizations, and geography is it plays a role in how the people's lived experience if they're far from HQ. Again, this is demographic data, arguably, but this is where it becomes relevant, because in terms of the organizational culture, are these kind of more satellite offices or remote teams feeling a little bit more left out of the culture, and how is that impacting their engagement with what you've got to offer? So I think we need to be looking at behaviors and how we can unearth what's really going on in the organization. And really, as we've said before, pain points are the biggest and most important driver for behavior change. People will do more to alleviate pain than pursue pleasure. So if we can ensure that what we're building solves a problem and our marketing shows them how it solves that problem, we're in a really strong position to have a successful product, right? That's the crux of it, in my opinion. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, I would probably add to that about that motivation piece. I've already slightly mentioned it in today's session with that example of the lady I was speaking to on a focus group. But understanding what's important to people. So it's essentially, we always take the mick and say, oh, nobody gets out of bed and goes, yay, GDPR training. But what does get them out of bed? Are they literally coming to their job for the paycheck? Some people do. That's cool. That's fine. But if not, what is driving them? Is it your company's culture? Is it their own career aspirations? What is it that's really getting them out of bed in the morning? That is such an influential thing, because the amount of L&D teams I see that like, oh, learning helps your career growth. And then we've done research and actually only like 10% of people give a damn about career growth. Your marketing's not going to land then, is it? Because you're leading with an assumption that, oh, people want to grow their careers, but that's not the reality of your organisation. So as much as, yes, those pain points, and typically when you have the conversations about pain points as well, you get some of these motivations coming out because it's their frustrations about, actually in dream world it would look like this. But answering it in both ways, like what's motivating you? I also think talking about pain points in a really practical sense really helps. So don't say, what's your pain points with learning? What's your pain points at work? It's almost like, and I think you said it on our market research pod, Ash, so it's my turn to quote you back to you. But like a great way of saying it is like, what's annoying you at the moment? What's pissing you off at work? What's the biggest challenge you're facing? And when I say that to L&Ders, they're like, oh, but I can't fix that. I can't fix the fact that their boss is an idiot. No, but we understand them. And having that level of understanding that they've got these barriers and they've got these pain points is what's going to help us actually not only market to them really effectively, but create experiences that actually work for them.
That's just mindfulness of the market, though, right? So, like, if we were going to do a campaign, like, plenty of TV shows had episodes that they didn't show after 9/11, or, products have changed their messaging to be more delicate to a certain situation. Is exactly the same thing. If we don't understand the market that we're existing in, then we can't be mindful of the things that already exist, are out of our control, but we still have to kind of equate around that nevertheless. We can't, that's like Coca-Cola saying, well, the economy's having a tough time at the moment. We're not in control of that. So people are just going to probably buy less Coca-Cola. No, what we're going to do is understand the mindset of our audiences and turn, I don't have enough money for a Coca-Cola, to, I'm so bloody thirsty, I need one now. So
yeah,
I think
what Coke do really well, obviously, I've actually not drunk a Coke since March, which I'm really impressed with myself.
Bloody hell.
I know.
Right.
I was a lifelong addict.
Well?
For anyone listening to this, Coke was like my blood. But anyways, they do really well of like actually positioning their product as escapism. So
lifestyle product rather than a lifestyle product
rather than I'm thirsty, I need a drink. It's have a break. So if we're
Share
all really
rational,
if we're really rational, we're saying okay, Coke is a drink and you drink it to quench your thirst. But their marketing and what hooks you in is the share a Coke with. It's take a break. It's like the Diet Coke where they did the whole like. They kind of did the Lynx effect kind of advert on it with the weird puppet guy that was meant to be like super sexualized getting a Diet Coke out. Like, it's how you're positioning your product, and we need to do the same in learning. That learning doesn't equal knowing more stuff. We're unlocking these potentials, and That's why we need to understand our audience, because if you're saying, like I said a minute ago, if you're unlocking career growth and nobody wants career growth, well, that's not going to work, is it? So we need to understand this depth.
Yes, because let's look again. We'll continue with the Coke one. Yeah, Coke quenches my thirst. It's a beverage. Cool. But why do I pick Coca-Cola over Pepsi? Why do I pick Coca-Cola over the tap water that I don't pay in the same vein for, in the same way? Yeah. You know, why do I choose Coke? Why should your people choose you over Google, YouTube, ChatGPT, so on and so forth? This is the truth of it. So there is a market and there is choice, and you are competing with that choice. And the only way to effectively compete and make people choose you is to understand that you need to build your products as close to what it is that they want and need, and you also need to tailor your marketing. So again, a great example is that storytelling piece and contextualizing things for people. So let's look at a retailer, someone who works on the shop floor. Hey, Steve, back to Steve. you gotta come do this this communications training and dealing with complex customers. You gotta go do that. Okay, Steve goes and reluctantly does it, whatever. What if instead you showed a context, like how embarrassing it is when someone's kicking off at you and you don't know how to handle the situation, or someone's not being an ideal customer, and that's it. Not only embarrassing because it's busy and there's lots of people around who are all looking at you and you're feeling quite small. Pain point, real lived pain. Anyone who's worked on a shop floor has experienced that. Only can we align our stuff with knowing what's really going on for people. So, you know, it helps improve our marketing tenfold and helps improve our experience design as well. So I don't know why we wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think beyond that, so we've got all this research. People have gone away, they've asked the right questions, they've asked the right people. I often get the, well, then what? And for us, it's quite obvious that you go and you create these personas. But why are personas in and of themselves, like the actual documents, so important for L&D?
I think personas can come under fire a lot in our marketing world as well. Like, how can we generalize people into these buckets? And they are general personas for a reason. I think the quality of the persona is the issue. So if the personas are based on assumptions, built around demographical data, clearly created by someone who wants to sell a product and is kind of just trying to create their ideal customer profile from waving their finger in the air in witchcraft, then those are personas that aren't going to do shit, truthfully. Yeah. So really good personas change the game. You know, I've seen really robust persona marketing work, and it does work. So what we want to be doing is building realities for people. So what we tend to do is find common pain points, common lived experiences. So again, like, there's got to be room for the minutiae, there's got to be space for the gray. But what are the kind of commonalities across these groups of people? What are those similar behaviors? And I'm not talking about what type of learning they like and whether they log into your LMS. I hate seeing that on personas because, again, it tells us nothing about them. I want to be looking at, you know, again, how do we motivate these people? How do we inspire these people? How do we talk differently to these people? So having a cheat sheet, a crib sheet, whatever you want to call it, that brings these people to life, makes them feel real for the individuals who are building experiences and marketing and comms for those people, gives a really strong point of reference, keeps everybody singing from the same hymn sheet, but also ensures that the work that we do is as optimized as possible. So articulating that data and turning it into insights, I would say, is what a persona is for me.
Absolutely, and I think that piece of really bringing them to life for the team that are using them is so important. And like you said, we've had pushback within marketing about personas not working, and we have had pushback in L&D circles of, like, how can you possibly categorise all of our employees into these 4 buckets? And like you said, yes, they're general, but my pushback to that is, what is the alternative? You're generalising them into 1 bucket because you're just going to send out a blanket message. And I think in L&D, we don't have as advanced technology and things like that as we do in marketing. So it's not as easy to actually segment the audience and say, okay, you're this persona and attach it to them. But by thinking about the different personas and thinking about how we're talking to Lydia, we always use Lydia in persona examples, don't we? So if we're talking to Lydia, we're going to cut through more of the noise for a bigger majority of the audience than if we're just doing it blanket and just saying, hey, yeah, there's one message to everybody. So, okay, I sometimes hear some of the pushback, but I don't agree with it because I think it is the best way to personalise en masse, especially within an L&D people function kind of space. We need to create that personalisation. We are talking to people that the world is hyper personalised around us. It's scarily personalised. We've spoken at length about like things like Netflix and even Spotify and things like that, of like you go on and you see something really personalised and tailored to you. Okay, some learning platforms are saying they do that now. I'm yet to see anything that really is hyper personalised, but hey ho. We need to mimic that within our marketing and our communications. We can't do it. We don't have the tech to really deeply go, okay, I'm going to send this message to Ashley because I know she cares about this. But personalising en masse helps us cut through that noise, helps us give that impression of personalisation for the majority rather than just sending out blanket and hoping it sticks. Honestly, I think personas are the most important part of marketing for learning and of actually getting learning, not even just marketing, learning right. Because if you're just building blind and you don't know your audience, you're just hoping really at that stage, aren't you?
Yeah, and you're setting yourself up for failure. And I don't think anybody really wants that. Like, we feel like we don't have the time to do these things. I get that there's a lot of other BAU firefighting going on. But if we want to do better with what we've got, then audience insights is the most crucial way to do that. And that will improve your learning products, and it will improve your marketing and communications. It is that simple. Having some data is better than no data, right? And so even if you can only do 5 focus groups of 10 people, that's some data. Pilot something, test it. Don't just, do everything based on that tiny bit of research, but do some experimentation and do some validation. And it doesn't have to be all of one or all of the other. I feel like L&D is in kind of like a transition stage where we're kind of starting to understand the need to leave some of the legacy behaviors behind in terms of how we do certain things and why we do certain things. But that doesn't mean you can just completely eradicate legacy systems and processes and mindsets immediately. So there has to be this period of slow shift and a changing of the tides, as it were. And that means small incremental changes, piloting, testing, validating. It's the idea of the people impact loop. It doesn't have to be change your entire learning function in one day. This is like, let's take this model and try this pattern of getting some data, changing a product, marketing it better, getting some data back, and then feeding that back in to then maybe try it again on a different thing. And over time, slowly, everything's evolving and moving from A to B to C to D in that graduated way rather than going from A to Z overnight, which is not viable.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest points that you've touched on there when it comes to understanding our audiences is we don't have to get it right first time. We don't have to know absolutely everything first time. And again, learning through experience. I worked with a client over the last 3-ish years, I think it's been. And we did a pilot and we came up with 3 personas and it worked really, really well. And then we did more research and more research and more research. And those personas tweaked slightly. And then we realised there was a bit of a gap. So then we created a 4th persona that really brought actually their entire audience to life. And we did it in incremental stages because they were at a pivotal point of shift and transformation. But the wider business was still like, I need a learning on XYZ. So they had to do it in small changes. They are now flying because they have managed to essentially, without us actually talking about the people impact loop with them, implement the people impact loop within their organisation. They get that research. They make sure they've got it aligned. They design the product with the audience in mind. They market it with the audience in mind. They get the feedback on it. They're doing that loop every single time they're working. But we started on an itty bitty tiny little project, which I think I spoke to about 50 people, and this is an organisation with hundreds of thousands of employees. You do something little, you test, you iterate, and you learn from that.
Yeah.
I think one of the legacy mindsets I'd love to see L&D leave behind is like the all or nothing. That we have to do everything right first time. And if we want to really understand our audiences, we need to start small. We had a chat this morning about like just artsing 100 people as you walk past them in the corridor. What do you think of this? Just one quick question. You can start as small as that if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But get that research, get that insight, because we can't keep building based on assumptions.
No, and you don't have to spend 50 hours doing research to get meaningful information either. You know, I always remember when I first started working in marketing, and at the time big data was a big thing. I don't even remember if you remember big data.
Yeah.
Big data, what do we do with all the big data? And I was kind of like, well, I work in organizations with like lots of small data because, you know, my audience set is quite niche. It's quite small, really. So just because I have like, what if you only have 500 employees? Well, good. That's the maximum amount of data you can get then, isn't it? Like, it doesn't, maybe you can't get data trends out of, you know, if you're looking in big data terms, but you're still going to get a lot of really good, valuable, qualitative data out of that. And even quant data, you know, it's just not going to be trendable or, you know, able to, I don't know, you did the economics degree. You can probably use much better words than I can on this.
No, I've blocked the entire economics degree from my degree. There's a reason that I'm now in marketing.
Yes, my media production degree also served me incredibly well. Well done. So I think the thing for me is this is our reality now. We can't work the way that we have been. It doesn't work. We know we're not getting our audience's attention. We know they're not engaging with our stuff. That's a product problem. And that's a marketing problem. And those two things are vastly improved with audience insights and research, good quality research. Start small. Incremental gains, guys. 1% better every day, whatever way you want to look at it. It isn't, you know, transformation tomorrow. It's transformation over the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to take time. You know, and like, again, lots of this stuff like is really baked into the culture of order taking within the business and the technology that you're committed to for the next X amount of years. Like, this takes time to unpick.
Yeah, and I think obviously we've spoken a lot about going out and doing your own research, but I also almost want to just quickly say at the end of this podcast, we are so lucky that there is so much data at our fingertips. You can talk to HR, you can talk to IT, you can talk to all of these different functions. If you're looking at external marketing, it's a lot harder. We are lucky in L&D that we can get our hands on these data sets. So maybe, no, you don't want a segment by demographic, but having that demographic data from the HR team, super helpful. Understanding the split of your organisation, where people are based, all that kind of stuff. Don't overlook the data that's already existing in our organisations. Almost, I would recommend getting that first, so then you're not going out and asking those questions. Answer questions that really matter and get deeper into who people are as an individual, as a human being, and then use the data that already exists to supplement that.
Yeah, because some of this data, some of that demographic stuff just gives really valuable context. You know, if you've got a primarily Gen Z demographic in your organization, is that going to impact digital literacy, so on and so forth? And so it's, again, like, don't just take the data point, then apply some cognitive thinking on top of that as like, okay, I've got this data, like, where's the correlation, what's the causation, which is it, what's going on here? We can't just take the data and put our own interpretation on top of it. Like, we need to be data informed, but you're still the expert when it comes to learning, you know, but this information just helps us design better stuff, market better stuff, and also give us the ability to say no, which we all want a bit more of too.
And to not build on biases as well, whether that's your own biases, whether it's your boss's biases, whether it's just stakeholders. A long time we have been just building based on assumptions based of our audience, and that's not good enough in 2025 and beyond. It's not been good enough for many years, but I think this is year we need to cut it. We need to do better and actually deeply understand our audiences to help us move forward. Obviously, this is a podcast. we can't screen share with you and show you what a great persona looks like and go into all of the little details on what your actual persona document or crib sheet, whatever you want to call it, would look like. So I will link in the show notes our guide to personas and also our template for personas, so that if you did want to go out and do this research yourself and actually create documents that are going to really help you personalize en masse, you can do that. But I genuinely believe, and I think I'll die on this hill, understanding your audience, whether you create persona documents or not, that understanding your audience is the key to impactful L&D teams.
Could not agree more. It is.
We won't even have any arguments on it. If you disagree with us, stop listening.
No. And, building on biases is probably the best thing you've said today, because
thanks.
Those are so dangerous, and we do that all the time. People like this, they want this, they probably want something on mobile, or but we got to keep on with the latest technology trends, so we'll make sure we do this. Like, why? What's all that based on?
Yeah. Well, even your example there about having loads of Gen Z in your organisation. If we had to guess what Gen Z wanted, Ash, I don't think we'd get anywhere close to what they actually want. We just spoke about blind date and ASL on MSN. Like, we have assumptions about certain demographics of people. We just do, because we're human beings. If you're pretending you don't, you're lying to yourself. We have these assumptions just baked into ourselves. We can't be developing learning or marketing or anything within our organisation based on those biases, because that's what they are.
We must be objective.
Yes.
That is it.
Exactly. Well, I've loved chatting about personas today, and audience understanding. It's always great to chat to you, Ash. I know we are back in a couple of weeks. We've got a few guests coming up next. So it's set to be a really, really great conversation, and it will be in your ear holes next Friday. But until then, we'll see you on the next episode, guys.
Bye. Remember, don't build with bias.